Welcome back to Boomer's Playground, and today we're going to be going over 2.2 and code structure. So let's see what we got going on here. All right, the first thing we'll study is the building blocks of code. Statements are syntax constructs, and commands that perform actions. We've already seen one, and that was that alert hello world. So alert was the JavaScript thing, and then we just passed in the string, so mdn alert. So if you come here, you'll see that it gives you this, and it even says alert, and we have a message there. And then down here, it'll say what that message is. So it's a string you want to display in the alert dialog. Cool. And we can have as many statements in our code as we want. Statements can be separated with a semicolon. For example, they split them with a semicolon there. Usually statements are written on separate lines just for readability. Whenever you're working with JavaScript, readability should be one of the most important things that you're looking at, because what'll happen is you'll do something and you'll come back a week or two later and you'll be like, who the heck wrote this? And then you'll realize it was you and you're like, what the heck? So readability is very, very important. A semicolon may be omitted in most cases when a line break exists. Yeah, I personally don't use semicolons. There's huge arguments about it. I'm starting to get into it a little bit now because Rust does require it, but you don't necessarily need it, and your editor will likely add it for you. Here, JavaScript interprets a line break as an implicit semicolon. So it's called ASI, which is automatic semicolon insertion. In most cases, a new line implies a semicolon, but in most cases does not mean always. So there are cases where a new line does not mean a semicolon. For example, this alert 3 + 1 + 2, the code output 6 because JavaScript does not insert semicolons here. It is intuitively obvious that if the line ends with a plus, then it is an incomplete expression, so a semicolon there would be incorrect. And in this case, that works as intended. But there are situations where JavaScript fails to assume a semicolon where it's really needed. So this is like a very contrived example. You would never write this in real code, but it's just to show. If you're curious to see a concrete example of such an error, check this code out. So we have the alert hello, and then we have an array, which we'll get into what that is. It's just a data type. And this .for each is looping over every single one of those. So here we get hello, and then we get 1, and then we get 2. So no need to think about the meaning of the... Oh, yeah, we'll learn those later. For now, just remember that the result of running the code shows hello, 1, 2. Now let's remove the semicolon after the alert, which you'll see that it's missing after this first alert here. And you'll see we get hello, and then we get an error. Now let's remove, oh, that was, all right. So the difference compared to the code above is only one character. The semicolon at the end of the first line is gone. If you run the code, we get hello, and then we get an error. That's because JavaScript does not assume a semicolon before square brackets. So the code in the last example is treated as a single statement. So it actually looks like this. And so that's where you get that error. Again, this is a real example, but it's so contrived. Like this would never be a thing. Like you rarely alert anymore. But it's just showing why that works. But so without that semicolon, it just shoves it all together, and then that's why we get that error. So such merging in this case is wrong. We need to put a semicolon after alert for it to work. They recommend putting semicolons between statements even if they are separated by new lines. This rule is widely adopted by the community. Let's note once again, it is possible to leave out semicolons most of the time, but it's safer, especially for a beginner, to use them. So I would highly encourage all of you guys to use them just for this issue, or just at least remember that way if you like run into an error, you might go back and think like, oh, maybe it was a semicolon thing. Comments are super important. So as time goes on, your projects become more and more complex and you forget what you did. Or if you're working on a big team, you didn't write the code, right? So comments are really nice to kind of leave descriptions of what's going on. So this is just saying this comment occupies a line of its own. This comment follows a statement. Comments are not parsed by the browser, so you can kind of put them wherever. But these are just single line comments, which is just like a //. If you want to do multi-line, you do /* and then */ to end it. And then you can just do multiple lines in there. The content of the comment is ignored. So if you put code in there that doesn't actually get run, we'll just get the one. You'll see we just got world and not hello. If you guys are going to use VS Code, which I, again, strongly suggest, you can highlight all the code you want and do Control/. And in almost every editor, that will comment out everything for you. Nested comments are not supported, so you can't do comments within comments, which I don't know why you would in the first place, but not allowed. And then, yeah, it's just saying don't hesitate to comment your code. Again, you're going to write code and you're going to come back even just a week later and you're going to be like, what the heck was I doing? So commenting code is really good. We're going to go over code quality in a following chapter, but this one was pretty easy, pretty basic. That's just code structure. So let's jump over to the modern mode, which is use strict. This is another one that's not super needed or common anymore. But before ES6, which is like the newest version of JavaScript, if you wanted access to a lot of the ES6 stuff, you had to use this use strict at the top of your JavaScript files. That's not really the case anymore. I don't want to say everything, but a lot of the ES6 stuff is built into just the JavaScript standard. This use strict is no longer really needed. It's got to be at the top. Yeah, it's just not something that's used a whole lot anymore. So if you want to go through, I'm not going to really spend a whole lot of time on that because, like I said, it's just not super necessary. And then we'll get into variables. Let's see where we're at for time here. About 7 minutes. Yeah, let's jump into variables real quick. All right, so variables, most of the time your application needs to work with information. So for instance, an online shop or a chat application. So what we have are these things called variables, and all they are is just named storage. So what you'll see here is we have let, and there are two types of variables. There's a const and a let, and I think we'll go over those. Oh yeah, we will right here, cool. So all this is doing right here is saying, hey, I have this thing called message, save it for me. And now there's nothing, we haven't assigned anything to it, so it's just empty. So if we were to do, we'll do let message. Message is just nothing. It's undefined. We created it, but we haven't assigned anything to it. But then what we can do is we can assign something to it, and now hello is stored in message. So this is kind of a weird example because it's so small, but like if you're using something a lot, this is nice to just hold on to it and store it so you don't have to like keep retyping hello every time. So yeah, so the way you assign it is just an equals sign in between the name of the variable and the thing you're assigning to it. So now the string is stored. I'm not going to do the alert. You saw right here that it is hello. You can also declare multiple with just like a colon, or a comma. I don't love this. I don't think it's bad, but I don't personally care for this. But if that's what you want to do, and when you get on your first job, that's part of the style, then awesome, do it. And so here we're just creating three lets. We're creating a user let equal to John, an age let equal to 25, and a message let equal to hello. So what we can do is I'll just refresh so that my message variable isn't being used. So here we can do let user equals John, age is going to be 25, and message will be hello. And then here you'll see users John, age is 25, and message is hello. So we did create them all. And then here they're showing the multi-line is a bit longer but easy to read. And so that's kind of the reason I'm not a huge fan of this is readability. Like I said earlier, readability is very, very important. And then we also could have done it this way, which does make it a little easier to read, but still at this point, just put let's in front of all of them. But again, your call. And then also we could do commas down there. Var is an older variable type. I would never use var. If you're asking yourself, as I say that, why? It's one of those things that if you ever need to use it, you'll know. But until you run into that, I just wouldn't use var. It's older. It's globally scoped or function scoped. So the var keyword is almost the same as let. The subtle difference, they don't matter yet. We'll go over that in the way, but I would just never use var. Okay, so we can easily grasp the concept of a variable if we imagine it as a box for data with a unique name on it. So we have this box of message and we stuck the string of hello in there, and now that will always be in there. You can put any value in that box, and we can also change it, but we can change it only because we use let. So let is a mutable variable. So as you see here, we set it to hello, and then we can set it to world, and now it will be, so like I can even do message and we'll do world. And then we'll see now that message is now world. So it changed it. When the value is changed, the old data is removed and thrown away. You can also declare two variables and copy data from one to the other. So here we have hello variable, which has the string of hello world. And then we have a message variable that has nothing. And then we're saying, hey, message, be the same as hello, which will now be hello world. So we'll just do let a, and we'll do a equals message. So this should be world. And so now a is world. Declaring twice triggers an error. This is because you don't want to use the let again. You only want to use it the one time, and then every time after, you just use the variable name. Functional languages. It's interesting to note that there exists some pure functional programming languages, such as Haskell, that forbid changing variable values. A functional programming language just means your functions should never change the data. It should just always, like the data should just never change. I wouldn't worry about this until you get a little further in. In these languages, once the value is stored, it's there forever. If we need to store something else, the language forces us to create a new box, and we can't reuse the old one. So variable naming, there are two limitations. The name must contain only letters, digits, or symbols. The first character cannot be a number. So we could do one time. That one doesn't let us. Now we could do one time like that, but the actual number we can't use. Camel casing is the most commonly used way of doing variables. So if you have like a multi-name variable, so like winner of game, you would do winner and then the O and of, because it's the next word, and then lowercase f, winner of, and then game, the G would be capitalized, and then the rest is all lowercase. That's camel case. That is super common. This is what most people use. There's really no wrong way to do it. Like on my team at work, a lot of guys come from like C, and so a lot of times, I'll see stuff like this. If I could learn to type. Kind of like that. Nothing, there's no wrong way to do it, but camel case is the most common, so I would just stick to camel case. What's interesting, the $sign and underscore can also be used in names. They are regular symbols just like letters without any special meaning. And so yeah, just kind of what I just showed. Can't use the number. Case matters. So variable names are case specific. So we'll do a equals hello. Oh, I was already using a, so let's refresh. Yeah, there we go. Hello, and let a equal world. So a is hello, and capital A is world. So case does matter when it comes to variable names. Not Latin letters are allowed, but not recommended. It's possible to use other languages, but really it's frowned upon. Might not be the best word, but you're probably just going to want to use Latin letters. Like it says, no issue here, but it's just confusing. I guess if you were in another country and all you're ever doing is dealing with other people from that same country, it might change that. But just traditionally, you want to use just Latin languages or Latin letters. There are reserved words. So like let, you couldn't set a variable name to be let because it's already used by the language. Same with const, same with class, return, function. And then it even has a link to like a list of the things that can and can't be used. Yeah, don't worry about that because we're not using use strict. And then constant is the other way to create variables. Constants can never be changed. So if we do const b equals hello, we can't come down here and do world. B is a constant now. And that's essentially what it's showing in these examples. When a program is sure that the variable never changed, use const. There's a little bit of, with arrays and objects, it's different, but we'll go into that when we get to the data types. Uppercase constants. So this is another just practice that most people do. So if you have a constant that you know you're going to use all the time, so like let's say you're building a site for like alcohol. In America, you've got to be 21 to drink. So you would do const, like you could do const and then we do something like that. And so you do this uppercase and it's just letting you know like, hey, this is going to be used all over the place. It's just another way to define a constant that is like truly a constant. Like I said, like this age thing or like, some other like thing that the number will never, ever change. So this is just showing like color examples. So red, green, blue, orange, and it's just so that they're always there. It's easy to know because they're capitalized. And then, down here, like it's showing, we can do color. We can set it to whichever one we really wanted to. So the benefits is it's much easier to remember than, the hex code. It's easier to type, so you're far less likely to mistype it. And when reading the code, it's much more meaningful than the hexadecimal code. So again, readability. When should we use capitals and when should we normal? Being a constant just means that a variable's value never changes, but some constants are known before execution. So like this 21, we knew this before execution. There are going to be a lot of constants that we get as the site is running and the person's interacting with it. Those would not be good examples of this. So like for instance, a user's age would make no sense for this because everybody's age is different. And we won't know until you sign up. And so here, like page load time, it's not known before the page loads, so we just do it normally. Naming things right. Talking about variables, there's one more extremely important thing. A variable should be clean, obvious meaning, and this is just back to that readability that I was talking about. So some good to follow rules are human readable names like username, shopping cart. Like the stuff I've been doing down here in the console, ABCs, like don't do that. Data and value are okay. They're a little vague, but you just kind of wing it. Again, there's no right or wrong here. You just do what makes sense to you and what your team agrees upon. Agree on terms within your team. And in your mind, if a site visitor is called a user, then we should name it current user, new user, not other things, right? Reuse or create. There are some lazy programmers who, instead of declaring new variables, tend to reuse existing ones. As a result, their variables are like boxes in which people throw different things without changing their stickers. What's inside the box now? Who knows? So such programmers save a little bit on variable declaration, but lose 10 times more on debugging. And so this is just back to readability. An extra variable is good, not evil. JavaScript minifies. Modern JavaScript minifiers and browsers optimize code well enough that having a 10-character variable opposed to a is not going to matter one bit. So that was the summary for this stuff for variables. Let is modern. It can be reassigned. Var is old school. I would never use it. Const is a value that never changes and can't be changed. And yeah, so let's see. Working with variables. Declare two variables named admin and name. And I'm just going to do it the way I told you I didn't like. And we'll do admin. Oh, no, we'll do name equals John. Admin equals name. Now we have name is John. Admin is John. And then I'm not going to alert it. This is just as good. Giving the right name. Okay, create a variable with the name of our planet. So we'll do let planets Earth. Planet. I guess they probably want us to do our planet, but planet's fine. Create a variable to store the name of a current visitor to your site. So here I would be current user. That's what I would use. Here we have a constant birthday for the date and also the age constant. The age is calculated from birthday using some code, which means a function call that we didn't explain yet. You'll see soon. Don't worry about that. We'll get into functions. The details don't really matter. So would it be right to use uppercase for birthday, for age, or even for both? So I'm going to say no. The reason I say no, we'll see if I'm right or not. The reason I'll say no is everybody's birthday is different. We won't really know until you sign up. So I don't think that we have this information before execution. And because we don't have that, I don't think age should as well. That are hard-coded or when they're value. In this code, birthday is exactly like that. So we could use the uppercase for it. Okay, so they're saying birthday could be and age wouldn't. I can kind of see that. The birthday is obviously never going to change for somebody. I probably wouldn't, but again, you wouldn't be right or wrong. You wouldn't get in trouble doing it either way. So, all right, well, that's the JavaScript variables. So we'll leave it at that one. I hope you guys learned something. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.